Chair would now call up Senate Bill 1109 by Senator West. You're recognized to explain your bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members. This particular bill was brought to me by constituents in the Grand Prairie portion of my district concerning the untimely death of a young lady who was the victim of date rape. And we wanted to make certain that we brought this to the attention of the members of this committee. Child abuse, family violence, and date violence are unfortunately prevalent issues that significantly impact students' educational and personal experiences. Though the issue is prevalent, these matters are frequently not discussed. As a result, students are ill-equipped and lack resources to assist in these difficult times and challenging circumstances, part of the discussion that we just had. In terms of statistically, teen dating violence is a pervasive issue that affects millions of teens each year, right here in the state of Texas also. According to CDC, approximately 1 in 11 female high school students and 1 in 15 male high school students have experienced physical dating violence in the last year. And approximately 1 in 9 female high school students and 1 in 36 male students experience sexual dating violence in the past year. Young love is supposed to be beautiful. Young love isn't supposed to hurt, and no, it isn't supposed to kill. But unfortunately, it does. I bring this bill to you so that we can remember those who have been hurt or killed by teen dating violence, like a young lady who lost her life way too soon due to teen dating violence. Her name was Christine Blubaugh, and this bill is the Christine Blubaugh Act. Christine was a young, vibrant, and intelligent 16-year-old Grand Prairie student who lost her life in March of 2000, members. She would have turned 38 years old on April the 13th. She had a whole life in front of her. She could have been a teacher, a lawyer, a senator, an engineer, could have been anything she wanted to be, but her life was cut short because she did not know what to do when her boyfriend became violent. She did not recognize the red flags or who she should report the abuse to. Her family's here today. Deborah, her twin sister Dawn, and I want to thank y'all for being here today. The key points of Senate Bill 1109, I had to go into that background, would require the State Board of Education to adopt rules allowing for the provision of instructional material to students, amend the Education Code, strengthen the guidelines and requirements as to what must be included in dating violence policies, and call for provisions of age-appropriate material, useful resources for students seeking assistance. And so I bring this bill to you today, recognizing the time is of the essence for your consideration. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Any questions for Senator West? Senator Perry?
Mr. Chairman, Senator West, I and I've kind of looked through your bill as we were sitting here and going through it, and just I'm in agreement that information's critical. My daughter actually worked at the women's shelter there in Lubbock for a few years, and her primary role was to go around to high school specifically and have those conversations, and she would usually find a group of girls, or girls most of the time, that would consolidate around her and in a smaller setting and have those conversations. But also see the information requirement, and just so you know, there's a lot of industry, unfortunately, the battered women, domestic violence, but they have a lot of teen dating resources. They have the teen dating hotline for reporting abuse and stuff. So there's a lot of resources out there that, as the SBOE, if this bill goes through, goes that path, they don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Don't have to reinvent the wheel.
They don't have to reinvent the wheel. And urban cities that have these shelters in place usually have an active and engaged program, fortunately, to go out and have that outreach for those high school kids, to have somewhere that's their peer group, right? Somebody that's within a year or two of their graduation. My daughter was young doing it. But it's really successful and really had some impactful, and she knows some girls that were in trouble that were able to get out of the trouble. But just, I don't want it to think we have to start from scratch.
No, I agree with you, Obama. I agree with you.
But it's unfortunate we need it, but that was probably one of the more rewarding times for my daughter in her professional career. She was an education major, but she never taught school. She went into the battered shelter because I had been on that board forever, and she just had an interest there. And it grew her tremendously, but really very effective.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Member Senator Bettencourt?
Senator West, I echo Senator Perry's comment. We don't have to start from scratch. Chairman, I've heard that the TEACs have been recently updated on this area by SBOE. Could we get somebody up and ask them what they've actually done to this point, so we know what this bill would do from that point?
I don't know if we have anybody from SBOE, but we do have Monica here from the, should we do the first testimony first? You want to bring her up first? Well, go ahead, come on up. Monica.
Whatever the bill authorizes.
I'd like to get the
Yeah, okay.
mother person's.
Yeah, we could do that.
That's fine.
So at this time, we'll open up public testimony and invite Deborah Blubaugh, if you would, come forward and introduce yourself.
Thank you for getting that picture for me, Senator. Good afternoon, and thank you very much for allowing me to come and give you my testimony today in support of Senate Bill 1109. My name is Deborah Blubaugh, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about Christine. I'm here today representing her siblings, and the rest of her family. I did a little research, and I know that a lot of you have children and you have grandchildren, and I appreciate your comments, Senator Perry, in reference to this. I think this is something that is really needed. It can be implemented with some of the other life skills that are out there. And as they said, you don't have to recreate the wheel. There's a lot of information and resources that can be used with this. Christine was 16 years old. She grew up in a loving home, and prior to being murdered, was never touched by violence of any sort. She began dating this young man who had been a friend prior to dating. He had even been over to our home to where I helped him with his homework and would cook dinner for him. I saw no signs of anything of that nature. Little did I know that he had been abusive toward her, and she was trying to escape the abuse. The week before her death, she enjoyed time with her friends, even going to the prom with her twin sister and a bunch of the other young ladies that go to school without dates. As a parent, you think recognizing the signs of abuse would be easy, especially in your own daughter. And I know many of you have daughters. But as I said, she grew up in a loving home, as did her father and I, and we were never around anything of that nature. She really didn't share much about this part of her life, maybe with a few of her closest friends. But these children were young too, and they had never really been around it. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know what the signs were. I believe had she had this information in high school, it could have started a conversation. I know I have a 9-year-old grandson, and he told me the other day he was being taught about bullying. You know, I think this can be implemented, as I said, in with the life skills. And I know that there's a lot being taught, and we expect a lot out of the teachers. And a lot of people may even say it's the parents' job to do that. We don't want to get involved. But I think it's going to take all of us. And our children are important to us. We want them to succeed. We want them to have dreams. We want them to get online and not get in line. So Teen dating violence is real, and it's all too real to my family. I cannot even tell you. I want you to just personally imagine your daughter is going out on a date and you kiss her goodbye. She's 16 years old. You tell her to come in before midnight because you have plans in the morning, and she doesn't come home. It's raining that night, and you start calling around all the hospitals and maybe her friends. And in the morning, she's still not at home. And as you're going to church that morning, unbeknownst to you, you're passing by the park to where her body is laying. And the young man that killed her killed himself, and his body is laying there. And the police are already on the scene. Just imagine your family. I know you have a daughter, Senator Taylor, or two daughters, in fact. Just put yourself in my place. And I'm not asking you to begin from the beginning, but I think this is such an important issue. And I know, Senator Lucio, that you have taken the challenges from your childhood, and you want these children to be successful and to have big dreams. It's too late for my daughter, but it's not too late to save other kids and other families from the hell that we've been living through. And I ask you to please support this bill.
Thank you, Ms. Blubaugh. So sorry about your story, and I appreciate you bringing it to us and helping to promote this bill. Hopefully it'll keep other families from going through what you've gone through.
Thank you.
Are there any questions, members? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you mind if I leave this up here?
Yes, in fact, your daughter's coming out
Thank
next. Dawn Blubanosencio. Good morning. Thank you for being here.
Hi. Okay. Thank you for allowing me to speak this morning. As you know, my name is Dawn Blubanosencio. I'm here today to be a voice for my twin sister, Christine, in support of Bill 1109. Sorry. She cannot speak for herself, as her life was selfishly taken by her ex-boyfriend, Carlos. You can see, because if he couldn't have her, no one could. My sister was beautiful and kind. She was everyone's friend. And she was my best friend. In school, we had classes together, and we played tennis together. And we had our first job together. We did everything together. And there were so many warning signs that we didn't know were warning signs at the time. We had gone to junior prom the week before. We hung out in the same groups. We just had a good time. I didn't know him sitting outside of my house for hours at times was him being possessive and something that I needed to bring to my mom's attention. She didn't know of anything going on. And he would sit outside almost daily for hours. And I would go to work. I worked nights. She typically worked days on the weekends. So I would let her know not to come outside because she was trying to break up with him. And I didn't know that he physically assaulted her. I believed when she told me that she had a bruise on her face that he bit her. She wouldn't tell me that part of it because she knew that I would confront him because I was the more aggressive twin. And I was very protective of her. And if anybody was hurting her, I wanted to confront the situation and protect her. So had I known those things and known that it could have led into the teen dating violence, I would have talked to my mom about it. But she didn't want me to say anything. So we had that twin sisterly thing where I wouldn't repeat what she told me. And I found out after she passed away the abuse that she took. The times, that her head was smashed into a wall or that she was punched. I was not aware of any of that. So with our lack of education and knowledge, just having a little bit, I know that I would have been educated enough to take it forward to somebody, whether it be a teacher, police officer at school, just somebody, if I wasn't comfortable, for whatever reason, just talking one avenue of person to talk to. Because nobody should have to go through the pain that me and my family are going through. Teen dating violence is real, and action needs to be taken to educate our children. My children shouldn't have to grow up not knowing their Aunt Christine. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Don. Members, any questions? So sorry for your loss. I mean,
Thank you.
I mean, it's hard enough for a sibling, but I know with twins, there's a special relationship, and I know, but you still have her memory.
Yes, and I actually talked to her right before she left the house. So I got that one last conversation with her and told her I would call her back, and then that's when it happened.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate y'all being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We also have Daniel Cesny. You'll have to help me if I misspelled or mispronounced your name.
Sir, A+ on the
So
pronunciation.
thank you. Probably one of the few A's I ever.
Joke in there with the A+.
But you gotta earn it one way or the other, so do it now.
Thank you for being here, Chief. He's the Chief of Police for the City of Grand Prairie.
Yes, sir. Thank you. My name is Daniel Cesny. I'm the Chief of Police for the City of Grand Prairie. I'm also on the Board of Directors for the Children First Counseling Center, which is a 40-year-old nonprofit that makes children and families whole again after abuse. I'm here today to speak in favor of Senate Bill 1109, the Christine Blubaugh Act. I'm certain this morning that you've all felt the same pain that we have to some degree about Christine's vibrant life being cut short. But sadly, Christine is representative of too many kids in our state. Kids who have lost their life to domestic violence are growing up in homes where abuse is what normal looks like for them. All children need to understand and be taught that abusive relationships are not normal and that help is available. We teach our kids how to assemble outside for a fire drill or shelter in place if, God forbid, there's an active shooter. But statistically, all of them are far more likely to experience domestic violence or dating violence. This bill aims to equip children with the knowledge and resources available instead of learning these lessons through the school of hard knocks. Between middle school and high school, kids are getting about 7,500 hours worth of education, give or take. We're looking for 4 to 6 here. 4 to 6 hours, in my opinion, to save lives is worth it. I understand Senator Betancourt's point that there's been some adjustments recently in the health curriculum that hasn't yet been put in place. But my point would be simple. If all of these things have been checked off in that amendment and adjustments, then that's great. Then why not codify in law? That way somebody can't go in behind us and change it. We can protect these kids forever. It's not an unfunded mandate if they're already looking to do those things, sir. I'd like to thank you for the honor of speaking before you today in this building. I'd like to thank Senator West for sponsoring this bill, sir. That means more to us than you know. And Senator Taylor, thank you for giving us a hearing. I know that it wasn't something you had to do. Thank you all very much.
Well, thank you, Chief. Thank you for what you do in your professional life as well, for what you do for the.
Thank you for that support, sir. We
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Menendez.
very briefly, because
Can I just real quick, members, they're holding up the floor, so we're not rushed by the 11
Okay.
o'clock thing, so.
great.
Okay.
I'm glad to hear that. I was going to be brief, but Chief,
What?
your
You can still be
testimony.
brief.
But you
Now
can still
that
be
I-
brief.
now
You
that-
can still be brief.
Now I will decide as it sees. Chief, you did an excellent job, and thank you for your service to our community. You made mention of something that's very important that we don't think about often, because most of us have been blessed to grow up in households where we didn't experience domestic violence. But you said a lot of kids are seeing it more and more often. And you, as a chief, have you seen a rise in the domestic violence calls?
Without question, particularly during COVID, it skyrocketed. These children were stuck in their homes, and they couldn't even have access to their counselors to speak out. The other challenge is that these children are in homes that are not normal, but they believe them to be. So they don't understand that there is even an issue until it's too late.
Right.
So, yes, I worked homicides for many years as part of my career. Many times, children were murdered that weren't even a part of the fight, so to speak, but instead were just murdered as during the course of the offense. So had these kids had the tools in school to understand that what they're going through is not normal, Senator,
Right.
that they could go to a counselor and say, look, this is what's happening with mom and dad. How can you help me?
Right.
That would have made all the difference in the world
Right.
to many of those victims, and certainly to this beautiful lady you see sitting on the table.
Yeah, absolutely, because what we don't want them to grow up is thinking that what they're seeing is a normal relationship and that they should put up with it.
Amen, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chief.
Senator Perry.
And I think that point, I'll reiterate, until you've kind of been around this issue I served about 20 plus years on this deal. Kids literally grew up and then they become the abuser because they just
That's
thought
right.
that was normal.
That's exactly
And
right.
it's self-perpetuating. It's very sad, sick.
Yeah.
So on the teen dating stuff, I know you're talking domestic violence in the home, but how many kids do you run across that are in these situations that unfortunately end? Do you see, or do you get referrals from the battered shelter? Where do you find out if you see?
All of the above, sir.
All of the above?
Yes, absolutely. So fortunately, in the city of Grand Prairie, we have a low crime rate. But if you look across the state, teen violence is a increasing problem. It goes along with a lot of the bullying issues, the cyberbullying, but this particular niche is just really not adequately covered.
Right.
And it is on the rise. I think we have an opportunity here to make a real difference. And at the risk of sounding quite corny, all of you can look back someday and say, you saved somebody's life. It is just that simple.
No, and I don't want you to think that some of the conversation was going, we're not talking about unfunded mandates because the material's out there. We just want to take advantage and we want to engage those local shelters because they get this issue better than anybody and they have trained people to be able to reach out to teens because as the sibling, teens are not usually the people that walk in your house and say, hey, mom or dad, guess what's going on? That's not what's going to happen. So when you have, and my daughter was probably 21 or 22 when she was on that tab, maybe a little older, but that 18-year-old, that 16-year-old, she was still cool, right? She could still kind of connect. So it's sad that those resources weren't available 38 years ago. That wasn't something that our society recognized as an issue, especially in the teen side and the domestic side. We've unfortunately for generations have ignored it and said it didn't happen or it was cultural, just grow up through it. So, but I think that the key here is this is something we can do almost today without having to wait a lot of rulemaking and a lot of weird, bureaucratic stuff to do, and that's encouraging that it's laid out. We just got to connect the dots, right? And,
Yes, sir, I
and
agree.
provide. So,
Right.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you for your
Appreciate
time.
being
I
here.
appreciate y'all very much.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank
We
you.
have one more witness, Roy Rios, who's with the Texas Council on Family Violence.
We have Judge Malhotra. You have Judge Malhotra on there.
We need to get a fill out a form. It's not on there. Go ahead, Mr. Rios, if you would introduce yourself, give us your testimony.
Thank you so much this morning for allowing me to testify. My name is Roy Rios. I currently serve as the manager for the Prevention Department at the Texas Council on Family Violence. We are a statewide nonprofit that supports the family violence programs that Senator Perry was just talking about. I am here to register strong support for Senate Bill 1109. I thank Chair Taylor and Chair Lucio for your leadership on this committee and strongly thank Senator Royce West for bringing this forward. I also have to send a big thank you to Senator Perry. I've had the privilege of seeing the impact of his strong advocacy for this issue, serving in two of the organizations that you've been a part of. Our entire organization watched last week as you all honored the memory of Christine Blubaugh with the Senate's teen dating violence proclamation. We applauded you then for the important stance you're taking and applaud Senator West and the rest of the committee for prioritizing young people, dating violence, and supporting school communities. We desperately need this legislation that's implemented in Senate Bill 1109. The Texas Council on Family Violence has a unique vantage point that allows us to hear firsthand from Texas prevention stakeholders. At the top of the needs that they express is more support for teachers, administrators, and overall school communities in addressing dating violence on their campuses. Texas is consistently the second highest state in contact volume for the National National Dating Abuse Helpline, Love is Respect. So the next step is clear. Senate Bill 1109 is legislation that is going to capitalize, as you all have indicated and identified, on existing policy structures to enhance delivery of dating violence, healthy relationship, and overall violence prevention education, and offer practical help-seeking supports for young victims. Similarly, TCFV has had the privilege of speaking directly with young survivors of all ages, who often state, and as we've heard here today, that what they would have hoped from the beginning is that someone would have taught them about healthy relationships when they were young. Simply that. Senate Bill 1109 does that by paving the way for teachers and other school personnel to have definitive action steps when issues related to dating violence present themselves. More importantly, Senate Bill 1109 will prevent other senseless crimes like the Blubaugh family has had to endure. We hold Christine's memory and that of 31 other minor Texans who have lost their lives in the past year. I will just close in saying that TCFV, we stand by in hopes that we can support implementation of this bill and welcome your questions.
Sir Lucio.
Thank you for your excellent testimony. You know, just listening to you and taking it in on your proactiveness makes me feel good about the future and the fact that we're going to be able to make a positive impact on a lot of kids that your program and other programs similar to what you're doing, because this is such a big state, and we need to, obviously, as you mentioned, come together because we're all in this together and make sure that we do the right thing for them. These bills that we've heard today, I'm so proud of Senator West,
Yes.
and others who have brought Senator Johnson and others. Just this makes me feel real good that we're going to finish this session, hopefully pass these bills, get them to the governor, and have a great session for the young people of our state. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that, Senator Lucio. The state of Texas is filled with amazing family violence programs that serve most counties in this state and are prepared to offer this type of prevention education support to teachers, both directly and indirectly around the state. And as I said, TCFV would love to stand by to support your legislation efforts in whatever way we can.
Senator Perry has a question.
Man, you've aged better than me. It's been a few years, but you look great. I think Article 11 has, I think Chairwoman Nelson and everybody on the finance made it a priority. I think we added an additional 13 million, but I'm not sure in that category. Hopefully things will work out where that gets funded. But that was kind of, my daughter's on a grant to go around to the high schools to do that. So that's kind of our dollars in action. I've seen it personally, but it's great to see you, man. You look.
I worked with
great.
Jordan, so it was great.
I thought that was, y'all were kind of mentored over that deal.
We
so
were.
It was good. So it's good to see you, man.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Judge Dimple Malhotra, and you're going to have to help me if I messed up on that. I'm sorry.
Perfect, Chairman.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
And we need you to fill out a card. I don't know if we have a
Yes,
registration.
I believe I'm doing that after.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. If you would introduce yourself and give us your testimony.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Chairman Taylor and members. My name is Dimple Malhotra, and I'm the judge of Travis County's only specialized domestic violence court. I'm here to register strong support for Senate Bill 1109, and I thank you, Chairman Taylor and Vice Chair Chairman Lucio, for your leadership on this committee and allowing us to testify on this important bill today. I also want to thank Senator Royce West for bringing this bill forward. I've spent the last 20 years working in the field of domestic violence. I have worked at domestic violence shelters as a staff attorney. I spent over a decade as the chief prosecutor of Travis County's family violence units, both at the misdemeanor and felony level. I've handled family violence homicide cases, and I now preside over a court dedicated to domestic violence cases. And the fact that my court even exists is evidence that we must do more to proactively prevent domestic violence. As you know, just 9 days ago in the city, a mother, her beautiful young daughter, and her daughter's boyfriend, an outstanding young man with a bright future ahead of him, were mercilessly shot and killed by the mother's ex-husband and abuser. The enormity of this loss has devastated our entire community, leaving us paralyzed with grief. Homicides are an unfortunate reality when we talk about domestic violence. I have sat on domestic violence death review committees, both in California and Texas, where our job was to review fatalities and discuss what we as a community could have done better. Senate Bill 1109 is what we could have and should have done. This bill not only honors the victims and not only honors Christine Blubaugh, it proactively educates and empowers our youth by teaching about the prevalence of dating violence and the warning signs of an abusive relationship. Adolescence is the perfect time to teach our young children about healthy relationships. In fact, half of the students who experience dating violence report that some of the abuse took place on campus, making schools a critical place for education and supportive pathways for help seeking. This is crucial because we know that unhealthy or violent relationships can have long-term effects.
Thank you. Were you able to finish your thought on
I
that?
have a few more just minor things to say, if you may have your.
You get in quickly, that'd be great.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Youth who are victims of teen dating violence are more likely to experience symptoms of depression, anxiety, engage in unhealthy behaviors like using tobacco, drugs, and alcohol, and contemplate suicide. We need to stop addressing domestic violence in the courtroom and start addressing it in the classroom. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Judge, thank you for being here today.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Judge.
Judge.
Thank you, Judge.
And I do see another witness, Chief Ronnie Morris. And I'll need you to fill out an online registration as well. We'll let you do that once you're done.
Good morning.
Morning.
Senator Taylor, thank you so much for having this hearing. Senator West, thank you so much for sponsoring this legislation. It's needed and appreciated more than I can say. But more than anything, thank you so much for the resolution that you read on the floor on Christine's 38th birthday. It was very impactful, and it meant a lot to the family and a lot of others, so thank you. My name is Ronnie Morris. I'm an Assistant Chief of Police with the Grand Prairie Police Department. I'm here on behalf of the Grand Prairie Police Department and on behalf of myself as a father of two daughters who are in public schools. I also serve on the board of directors of Brighter Tomorrows, which is a domestic violence awareness and prevention organization, much like what you mentioned, and we do partner with school districts to provide this education to students in our area. I also serve on the board of directors of Crisis Response Ministries, which serves all people in crisis, and teen violence and domestic violence and child abuse are things that we focus on quite regularly. Currently, Texas does not require public schools to provide instruction relating to the prevention of child abuse, domestic violence, and dating violence. This is a dangerous gap that must be filled in order to protect children in our state. Sadly, our children are not immune to the realities of violence in the home and in dating relationships. Further, the data clearly shows that parents are not having these discussions at home with their children. Specifically relating to dating and domestic violence, over 80% of parents believe it is not an issue or don't know if it is an issue, so they say nothing to their kids. This one stat alone clearly demonstrates the need for this educational instruction in schools and how vital it will be to the health and safety of our kids. It is also a sad fact that Texas has the unenviable distinction of leading the nation in the number of child abuse fatalities and number 3 in the nation for the most instances of confirmed child abuse. Texas accounts for 10% of the nation's domestic violence murders, and 1 in 3 teenage girls in Texas is a victim of partner abuse. If education is the greatest weapon we possess to combat the scourge of child abuse, domestic violence, and dating violence, then we can no longer send our kids into the world unarmed and unprepared to defend themselves. We must arm our kids with the tools they need to help them recognize the signs of a dating violence relationship or domestic violence at home and the resources to help them escape. The Christine Blubaugh Act will save lives of Texas kids, and the time is now for this to be codified in law. Thank you all so much for your service to the state of Texas. I appreciate it greatly.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. Senator Lucio.
Chief, thank you very much for your excellent testimony. What would be one of the things that are happening to our kids to get involved in teen violence like we've heard here? Is it alcohol? Is it drugs? Is it abuse of themselves by parents? I mean, what have you found in your work?
Right, much what was discussed earlier, all of the above. Abuse in the home is a big one. Teens who are having problems at home, especially teenage girls, are much more susceptible to abusive relationships. And we also find a lot that some of these abusive relationships, particularly in teens and runaways, all too often lead to human trafficking. And that is also a scourge on our state and in our country. So there are many different variables in what would cause a teen to be involved in dating violence. But it is, again, with the millions of students that we have in the state of Texas, if the lowest numbers we have, that 10% are involved in a dating violence relationship, we're talking about 5,600,000 kids.
Thank you very much, Chief.
Senator Paxton, Senator West.
Thank you, Chief, for being here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chief, have you ever been invited to, like, address students at a school?
Yes.
Or students, or officers in your charge? I mean, is that something that happens?
I have. I get the opportunity regularly to speak to young kids. As a matter of fact, I just spoke at a teen dating violence summit with a local organization in Dallas-Fort Worth.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever go into schools and speak?
I haven't gone specifically into a school, but through my work with Brighter Tomorrows, I help facilitate that education in the schools.
I know when I was teaching that from time to time we would have officers or judges or people like that come and address the students. In this summit that you were talking about, were there parents there? Do you think there would be benefit in, and I guess I'll go back, in your testimony, you referenced that most parents are completely oblivious to the threat, danger or prevalence of dating violence. Do you think that there would be benefit in not only educating students about these issues, but having a parent component where parents were also educated in a lot of these issues? Do you think there would be benefit in that?
I think there would be huge benefit in that. As a matter of fact, the organization that I spoke at the summit, Helping Us Help Her is the name of that organization, and the parents actually attending with their teen children is also sponsored by the school district. So that's part of what Grand Prairie ISD is being proactive in doing, in bringing the parents in to the education that they are currently providing.
Well, thank you. And I highlight this because actually kind of a common theme in some of the things we've been talking about this morning is we're doing these things at school because many times they're not happening at home. The discussions are not happening at home. That maybe when we were kids, we remember those things happening at home. And for whatever the reasons might be, we find ourselves today in a situation where there's a little more detachment, to say the least, maybe between parents having those conversations. So I think as we think about prevention, it's incredibly beneficial for kids to be educated and empowered to recognize these things, But to go even further with prevention, perhaps we should think about including that parents need to be in the loop on this, that we need, I mean, you know what, schools have a lot on them. And I'm not gonna sugarcoat that. We have so much, teachers have so much on them. But anything we do with prevention helps in the long run. And to me, the ultimate prevention would be if we were also, even through our schools, because we cannot educate a kid in isolation from their family experience. And the parents are as much a part of that school community as any student is. And if we really want to do prevention, to me, the ultimate in prevention would be also equipping and empowering parents, and having our schools as part of a program to educate students, to make it about educating families and equipping, having parent programs where you bring in a police officer, whatever. I don't know what that needs to look like, but I think, yes, we need to help kids, but we'll always be kind of behind the curve if we aren't going further to the root, which is the home and educating families. And so I would just suggest that as something we might consider augmenting.
Well, I look forward to
Senator West.
Mr. Chairman, I look at Senator Paxton. You have demonstrated so much passion this morning concerning these
My
issues.
pink.
It must be the pink, then. It must be the pink. But I applaud you for the passion that you've demonstrated this morning on policy-related issues and implementation of those issues. I want to say that publicly. And I look forward to working with you on some of these prevention-type issues, which I also have a passion for, and others on this committee also. Chief, thank you for bringing this to my attention. You have been very persistent.
That's one word for it.
That's one word for it, but that's a good word for it too, and I thank you. This road we travel is still, we still hadn't arrived at the destination yet, but let's stay hitched to make certain that we bring Christina's memory into full focus of people throughout the entire state of Texas. Thank you for your testimony.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So Wes, didn't you tell me you're gonna have trouble driving through town or something if we didn't get this thing moving?
I did tell you that, on Interstate 20 for certain.
That's
on
a lot of
Beltline.
pressure. Senator Lucio.
I just want to, before we leave, want to let you know that we all feel the same about that uniform you're wearing. And we're very proud of the work you're doing. And for both of you young leaders in our state, to be here today is so meaningful. And it shows the respect that you have for the public you serve, and gives us a chance to let you know how grateful we are for the dedication that you've shown. And we have all come together to make sure that we create a safer environment for you as you do your work, and support whatever efforts are needed so that we can have our community safe because of you all, our first responders. Thank you.
Thank you for support, sir. It's an honor to serve.
Are there any other questions? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Chief.
Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on, for, or against Senate Bill 1109?
Could we get the resource witness up so
Yes.
everyone understands
Monica.
exactly what we're doing already on this?
Monica Martinez, Texas Education Agency, resource witness on the bill.
And Senator Betancourt has a question.
Yes, sir.
Okay, the TEACs have been recently updated with this by SB1109. What have they done, and how does this bill blend into that?
Yes, sir. So in November of 2020, just recently, the State Board of Education revised the health education standards for kindergarten through 12th grade. Those standards have not yet been implemented. They are to be implemented beginning in the 2022 school year. To give you an idea of some of what they've added, there is an injury and violence prevention and safety strand in the standards. So beginning in 3rd grade, they do start to address in an age-appropriate way, abuse and neglect. When we move into middle school, you'll see family violence beginning in grade 6. That goes up through High School Health 1. There's also a reproductive and sexual health strand that addresses personal safety limits. It does talk about dating and teen violence. So some of the examples of the standards are mutual respect, honesty, and healthy relationships, being able to explain all forms of abuse, defining dating violence, and the characteristics of unhealthy relationships. There's language in there that talks about speaking to a trusted adult, reporting behavior that is going to be displaying those characteristics of dating violence. So I think my understanding of where this bill has some additional language is that this specifically talks about a district having a dating violence policy, and that instruction in the local district's dating violence policy is a requirement of this bill that I don't think is something that you would specifically see in the state level standards. I think the other thing that this bill does is it specifies that students need to receive instruction. I believe it's one time in middle school and twice in high school. So while the information that goes up through 8th grade is required and all students are expected to receive that instruction, I would be remiss in not also saying that health is not a required class in high school. So while I think this content is something that the State Board of Education has included, there's not a specific requirement that students receive that instruction, and that is something that is included in this bill.
Thank you.
So it's just, so to summarize, there's been steps already taken, okay?
Yes, sir.
But we have not implemented it into 2022, which is obviously coming in the fall.
That's correct.
And that you see that the bill has additional time in the high school years because health is not a required class.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And but this but the hours estimate of the bill actually is down because some of this material is already covered.
So we do believe that some of the content is covered in middle school. The State Board of Education doesn't prescribe a time requirement, just that the content is covered.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Thank you, Monica. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on, for, or against Senate Bill 1109? Chair sees none, we'll close public testimony at this time. Members, you know we don't normally vote bills, but I think today, in honor of Christine Blubaugh and her family and the other folks that have been here, I'd like to take this up for vote at this time. So Senator West now moves that Senate Bill 1109, otherwise known as the Christine Blubaugh Act, be reported to the Senate with the recommendation to do pass and be printed. The clerk call the roll.
Chairman Taylor,
Aye.
Senator Lucio,
Aye.
Senator Betancourt,
Aye.
Senator Hall,
Aye.
Senator Hughes,
Aye.
Senator Menendez,
Aye.
Senator Paxton,
Aye.
Senator Perry,
Aye.
Senator Powell,
Aye.
Senator Shortner, Senator West.
All right.
There being 10 ayes, no nays, Senate Bill 1109 will be sent to the full Senate for consideration. You want to go to left with it?
No,